Yesterday, the House passed the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, is there something in there that would interest us right here in Southwest Florida? Yes, actually, there is a very interesting portion of it. And it has to do with a bill that Congressman Greg Steele has put in that Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. And it's important for us. And so I'm so happy that he is with us this morning on Daybreak, 92.5 Fox News. First of all, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Always great to hear. By the way, first of all, if you don't mind me saying, and if you don't mind me asking, because people have asked me, how are you? How are you feeling these days? How's everything going with your health? You good? Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm great. All healed up. Thanks for the healing power of Jesus and the blessings of prayer of people all across, not just Florida, but the country. I played in a baseball game 4 months after I fell, after having a concussion, torn ligaments in my neck, a punctured lung, and a broken pelvis. And I honestly feel stronger today than I did before I got knocked off a lot.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I'm so happy to see when people text and they're asking. So that's very cool. People care about you, so they just want to know you're good. And I know you're working hard as usual there in D.C. And so what do we have here? So why are we, as I set this all up, as it passed, the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act, and there's something in there that you included that's important for us here in Southwest Florida. So what's up with that?
Yeah, so I was able, the disaster relief bill that I had as a standalone bill, and then it passed committee, and then it got lopped into this package, and then the package we didn't know if that was going to go. Finally, yesterday, it passed the House floor with the disaster relief in it. So not just Floridians that were affected by Hurricane Ian or in North Florida, Idalia last year, any American in the country that was affected by a natural disaster, a presidentially declared natural disaster, will be able to deduct their expenses on their taxes. Now, the unfortunate piece of the timing of this, which is why I've been pushing for the last year to try to get this passed, but there is something to say about getting an act of Congress passed. It takes forever to get this process through.
Right.
But if you're like me and many other people in the district that were affected by Hurricane Ian, you've probably extended your taxes. You extended to October, and then we were hit with Idalia, so the IRS let you extend to February 15th. Well, that's in like 2 weeks.
Right.
So I think it would take another act of God for it to pass the Senate in the next week or so in order for the president to sign it before that February 15th deadline. But the good thing is it's going to pass. I feel very strongly about it. It passed like 350 to like 70 last night. And so when it does become law and the president signs it, if you had any expenses as it relates to the hurricane, that's including paying your deductible, you can deduct that as an expense from your taxes, and you don't have to itemize to do that. So if you don't itemize your taxes, you'll still be able to take advantage of this. And I've talked to people, this is like hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. It's certainly, if you had $10,000 in a deductible and you're at a 33% tax bracket, you're going to be able to deduct $3,300. So this is real savings to Americans and Floridians, especially in my district that were affected by Hurricane Ian.
Wow, that's fantastic. I know, and obviously, as well as anybody that's there in D.C., the process and how slow it is, and maybe even before we go on, because I have a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. Even the process and what this has been like. I guess the if you would say helpful part of it was that everybody got to see on display all the devastation that we had here during Ian. You couldn't deny it. Everybody across the country knew what was happening. And certainly people even outside of the district, outside of the state knew the devastation. And even in their areas, I'm sure there are plenty of places that were devastated, right, by wildfires and other issues that we've had. And the natural disasters that have affected them. And you would imagine that even through that, the process would be quicker sometimes, realizing that even in their areas, how they've been affected. But maybe talk about the process.
Yeah, I can't explain how frustrating that has been because we're in the majority in the House. And so as soon as I filed it, being a former state house guy, state senate guy, where like you file something and then like the chairman puts it on the agenda because we're all fighting for the same team and it's something that's not controversial and you move it through the process. Well, it took fighting and former Speaker McCarthy, right before he was vacated, committed to me to get it up in committee. It was up the following week. He had committed to me to get it on the floor. This was back, I think, October, November when he got vacated. And well, then once he was gone, we were in stagnation for 3 weeks trying to find a speaker. And so that delayed things tremendously. And then there was this ongoing negotiation with our chairman and the chairman in the Senate on a bipartisan tax package. And they wanted to just include it in that because, of course, people like me are more apt to vote for a bill that has something in it that benefits my district.
Of course.
And it just got caught up in that. And it's frustrating. I mean, people communicate with me all the time, like, why aren't you guys doing this? Why aren't you guys doing that? And there's obviously rules and process and time of things to happen up here. But it can be very frustrating even for myself that's living it every day, trying to get things for your district that benefits, like you said, the whole country. Anybody that was affected by a wildfire in California benefits. Maui wildfires benefits. The train derailment in Ohio benefits. Anybody affected by a tornado in Alabama or any other part of the state, if you had a federally declared natural disaster affect you, you can deduct those expenses from your taxes. It's a huge thing for Americans. It's something Congress has typically done. It's just frustrating it took so long to get it across the finish line. And now we got to wait for the Senate, which Lord knows how long that's going to take.
Wow, is there a train derailment in Ohio? I wouldn't know because typically I would know because a president shows up there after a disaster.
Yeah, right?
I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? I might have. Congressman Greg Steele joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. Hey, if you don't mind, I know you've got to jump, but just a couple of other things I wanted to ask about. Speaking of Biden and the administration, look, people get frustrated by inaction and even like what we discussed and how hard it is for the process to move. And some people get frustrated because they see what's happening along our southern border and they know exactly what's going on. And just like they saw the devastation of Ian here in the state of Florida, across the country, they can see the same devastation and what is going on with the passing through of illegals on a constant daily basis and the kind of numbers that we all see and we all know and how the country is being affected. And people say, do something. And the House is doing something, advancing articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole issue, not only on the border, but of the articles of impeachment. And then the other part of the argument is people say, well, nothing's going to happen anyway. I mean, it's all for nothing. And my answer to that is all for nothing. So what you're suggesting is nobody be held accountable at all. And Republicans don't show that they care about the rule of law and the Constitution, and they're willing to do what it takes to have people at least recognize that something's getting done when it comes to the feckless and otherwise process that this administration is going through when it comes to the border. Maybe you can talk about Alejandro Mayorkas.
Yeah, he should have been impeached years ago. I co-sponsored impeachment articles on him years ago. I actually drafted impeachment articles on Biden. I co-sponsored impeachment articles on Biden years ago because of the border. This is a intentional, deliberate attack on America that this administration is intentionally every single day violating federal law that Congress passed on the border. And unfortunately, we're in a bifurcated Congress where you've got Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in charge of the Senate and Republicans in charge of the House. One of the tools we do have is impeachment. So thankfully, we're finally doing that. It is long past time for him to be impeached. And you're right. I mean, some people say, well, that's not going to matter and the Senate's not going to remove him. Well, the Senate probably won't remove him. But there's a lot of Democrats now that are seeing that this is a real issue. This is a 75-80% issue across political spectrums. Even Democrats and independents recognize that this is a challenge and a problem for our country. And so maybe he will get removed. But even if he doesn't get removed, it's showing that the House is willing to step up and impeach somebody who's completely failing and violating federal law at the border. And just to remind your listeners, we passed a border security bill that as soon as we got the House majority, it was H.R. 2. I think it was February a year ago when we passed that bill to show the American people that this is important. It passed the House of course, on party lines. and then it went and languished and sat in the Senate. I believe, and I'm not the majority of my conference, but I believe we should use the appropriations power of the House. And if that means shutting down the government until Joe Biden shuts down the border, then I fully 100% support that, because that's the only way that you're going to get their attention. The framers of our Constitution gave the House the purse strings for a reason, and I think if we don't use that, then we're not allowing an opportunity to shut this down and stand with the American people. And it'll be painful. It'll be painful if the government shuts down, and I recognize that. But I think you could fund military service members and the border agents and law enforcement and some of these other things to ensure that our national security is still in place, and then shut down everything else until Joe Biden does his job and shuts down the border and follows the law.
Yeah, and get people on the record and have them on record to show exactly where they stand in this fight, in this debate. And I think there are more than a few resources and places that the American people can go to get the information as to where people stand and what exactly is happening. And it does move the needle. I really do think it does. And you can't just sit back and do nothing. You can't. It's
No.
yeah.
And Republicans are frustrated. They're like, why should we vote for you guys if you're not going to do anything?
Right.
And I agree with that.
Yep.
That's why I think we need to stand on that. And if you communicate it to the American people that we are shutting down the government because Joe Biden has an open border and we are shutting it down until he shuts down the border, if everybody communicates the same message, I think the American people are with us on that.
Yep, I agree. All right, Congressman, I always appreciate having you on. It's great to hear from you, and all the best, and we'll speak soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon. Congressman Greg Steele joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News, District 17 in the great state of Florida.